Congress is returning to Washington for a work period that will be filled with important to-do items. But we already know what will top the agenda over in the House of Representatives. House Democrats are finally indulging in their three-year-old impeachment obsession. Full steam ahead. Many of us remember the Washington Post headline that was literally published on Inauguration Day back in 2017. Here's what it said: "The campaign to impeach President Trump has begun." And sure enough, House Democrats have been at it ever since. One prominent House Democrat called this presidency illegitimate before it had even begun. One of Speaker Pelosi's committee chairs, whom she has tasked with leading this process, promised years ago that she'd find a way to impeach the president. So, Madam President, now that Speaker Pelosi has finally crumbled and allowed her left-wing impeachment caucus to dictate the House's actions, I don't think many of us were expecting to witness a clinic in terms of fairness or due process. But even by their own partisan standards, House Democrats have already found new ways to lower the bar. This is about the most consequential process the House of Representatives could possibly engage in: overruling American voters and nullifying an election. Surely, any such process must be conducted with the utmost fairness and transparency. It must be held to the most exacting of standards. And yet, House Democrats have wasted no time throwing fairness and precedent to the wind. Already, they've denied their Republican counterparts certain minority rights, like equal subpoena power, that Republicans provided Democrats during the Clinton impeachment. Already, they've made clear that President Trump's counsel will not be allowed to participate in hearings, present evidence, and cross-examine witnesses, all important rights that Republicans provided to President Clinton. Already, one House chairman has been caught publicly mischaracterizing his committee's handling of the whistleblower inquiry on which this whole investigation hinges. So, Madam President, for all the public hyperventilating over institutional norms that we've heard from House Democrats in recent years, it appears they have no intention of letting norms, precedents, or basic due process stand in the way as they seek to cancel out a presidency. In the meantime, here in the Senate, we'll keep our focus squarely on the substantive work that we need to complete for the American people.
Now, Madam President, over the past month, evidence has emerged that the President of the United States pressured a foreign leader to investigate one of his leading political rivals. A whistleblower inside the intelligence community first raised alarms that the President applied pressure on Ukrainian President Zelensky to pursue an investigation that would benefit President Trump politically. The President himself then released a memorandum of his conversation with President Zelensky, which demonstrably validated the whistleblower's concerns. In the weeks that followed, the House has received testimony from a number of State Department officials who have filled in additional pieces to this very troubling puzzle. Rudy Giuliani's efforts to dig up dirt on the President's political rivals were well known within the State Department and the National Security Council. Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, was heavily involved with Mr. Giuliani, and we continue to receive additional information about Mr. Sondland's participation. His scheduled testimony in the coming days will undoubtedly be relevant and important. Amidst all this, the White House is engaged in stonewalling and outright defiance of congressional prerogatives. The State Department instructed its officials not to comply with congressional subpoenas. The White House has refused to cooperate with the House impeachment inquiry, and the President has publicly and repeatedly sought to bully and intimidate the whistleblower. As additional facts are unearthed, we have a responsibility to consider them with the best interests of our country in mind. The whistleblower was doing a courageous and patriotic act and must be protected, must be protected. The Constitution made Congress a co-equal branch of government. That role must be respected. The matter at the heart of the inquiry concerns the very integrity of our democratic elections, and it must be investigated thoroughly, completely, and in a nonpartisan manner. Our founding fathers feared foreign interference in our elections and considered it one of the greatest threats facing our fledgling republic. Once again, the wisdom of the founding fathers shines through. If a foreign country can meddle in or affect the outcome of our elections, Americans will quickly lose faith in our democracy. If Russia controls our elections, or China, or Iran, what the heck do we vote for? So the alleged offense by the president is clearly serious enough to warrant an investigation by Congress. And that is exactly what the House of Representatives is doing in its impeachment inquiry. And it must continue unimpeded. But we can do two things and must do them. We can protect the Constitution and take action to help average working families at the same time. We here in the Senate can do both. Protect the Constitution and help average working families. It's not either or. It's not one or the other. From the very beginning, Democrats have been committed to doing the people's business. But while the Democratic majority in the House of Representatives has passed hundreds of bills dealing with health care, infrastructure, gun violence, climate change, and much more, Leader McConnell has turned our chamber into a legislative graveyard.